Hey, good morning, and welcome to episode 87 of Talking to Artists. So, thank you so much for joining me today. And I really want to encourage you, if you enjoy this interview and you enjoyed last week's interview, I really would encourage you to go and check out anywhere you get your podcasts under Talking to Artists. There is a whole history. So, we have 40 interviews already. I've got another 4 that are ready to be uploaded very soon. So, lots of awesome listening pleasure for when you're in the studio. A couple of other quick things, as people know, the Pirate Squared show is coming along nicely. We're starting to actually now see some finished pieces. There's been a number of works in progress that I have posted on my website as well as the Art Alchemy East site. So I am so excited to see it in real life, and I'll hang up on March the 11th is the opening day. So there'll be more details to come, but basically there'll be a preview at Art Alchemy from about 3 to 7. At 7 o'clock the store opens and people can buy it either online or while you're in Art Alchemy space, seeing the most amazingness and the creativity that's gone into these incredible circles. So today we're going to talk to Margot Roi. She is a contemporary landscape painter who has had a long history of from textiles to theater to education to now being a full-time artist. So I am really excited to talk to her. So I'm going to welcome her right on. Let's see where she is. And hopefully she will be here soon. Woo! Great hair!
Hi, Kate. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Oh, fabulous. Just fabulous.
Good, good. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
You're very quiet, so...
Okay, we'll talk a little louder.
Or you might have to sit closer to your phone.
I will. There we go.
Okay, cool. And I'm just going to... 1 second. I had this buzzing going on. I'm like, what the hell is that buzzing? And I realized our studio is so cold I had the fan on, so it was like really loud. So I apologize for that. So welcome. I'm so glad you could not only just join us for this interview with Talking to Artists, but I know we've done a lot of similar shows together, The One of a Kind and The Artist Project, and you're also one of our Pi artists. So I'm really excited to have sort of seen the progress of what you're producing. But maybe you can start off talking about your very interested and varied journey to getting to be a full-time artist.
Oh my gosh. How long is this interview?
I've got a timer on, so don't worry. I know people always say it's so long. And it's like, well, once you start talking, it's not too long.
Well, I know that my family had our fair share of artistic shenanigans, and so it was art's always been in my life somehow, whether through textile design or education, teaching art for 30 years. But I think I loved seeing the patterning, and I loved the puzzle of pattern. And so that's what led me to Sheridan College, and I took their degree in textile design. And so from there, I went.
And so what kind of stuff do you do in textile design? Like, is that where you're designing wallpaper or?
Yeah, you're designing the actual fabric. So, you see wallpaper design, a textile artist or a graphic artist will have designed that. Your prints for your fabric on your sofa, your drapes, that kind of thing. I did a lot of hand painting on silk. I really love that. So I got involved in some stores that downtown Queen Street stores that would give me like a bolt of silk fabric. And then I lay it out and I would just hand paint, and then they would sew up some beautiful design. And so I really, really loved doing that. Gorgeous. And I did a lot of silk scarves, sold a lot of silk scarves. So that was kind of fun. But from there, I decided I got a job as managing a textile store and, helping with interior design, that kind of thing, helping design not only their houses, their cottages, everything. So from there, I decided to teach. I offered teaching classes as well. And that's when I got the teaching bug. I taught quilting. I did a lot of fabric design, like wearable art. So a lot of sewing, wearable art, painting on the wearable art. So that was a great treat. And so I got the teaching bug, and I thought, my dad was an art teacher, and he'd come home every night with these stories of how much fun the students had, how much fun he had. And I thought, I could probably do that. I
Yeah,
like that.
that's awesome.
Yeah. So off I went to University of Windsor, actually. Got an advanced standing there because of my Sheridan degree, and studied fine art. And joined the Flat Art Society, which was hilarious. So it was all about painting and really expressing yourself. I learned at Windsor how to really be to show your voice. So it wasn't just about the painting, or wasn't just about the designing, which I had this background for, and I was able to sell my work. But in Windsor, the students were like, "Oh, you have to sort of like put your whole soul on the painting." I thought, "Oh, okay, I can do that." so a lot of interior, like, thinking about, what am I saying? Where's my voice? Do I have a voice? Do I just want to paint? So that was fun. And so after that degree, I thought, well, okay, now what am I going to do? At that point, I had I was a single mom with a daughter, and I thought, oh boy. So, well, I might go into the family business of teaching, and that was a great thing. So sure enough, I got into teaching, and for 30 years, and loved every minute of it. I mean, there's the ups and downs, but I decided on secondary school, high school kids. And from there, I not only helped the students advocate for themselves, and I think that's my big point of why I went into teaching, was I wanted them to have a voice. Some students end up falling, in the cracks, as they say. So I wanted to be their champion for them, their cheerleader, and show them how to take their almost therapy, right? Take their art and making it into a voice where they were heard and they can express themselves.
I think, yeah, I was to say, I think that's really important, especially because, having a career as an artist, we know that so much of society will try and talk people out of doing that as a full-time career. And so I think if someone really feels a passion to do that, it's nice to be able to have somebody, at a high school level, especially where they're so impressionable in terms of what they're going to do next, to have someone who's a champion. And I know I was very lucky as well to have that in high school for 1 year. And then the next year was a horrible art teacher and a horrible experience. So it can go the other way around. And I remember my father, because I was like, obviously I'm no good at art, I better quit. And my father's like, look, this is something you've loved all your life. Like, you have to stick to it. And I was very lucky to have awesome art teachers after that. But, teachers have such a huge impact. And I think it's a very big responsibility.
It is a big responsibility. And you have to be so careful, because you love these little guys and you just want to take them home sometimes, because, they've got problems, and, I got to solve their problems. But, you just have that fine line. So I then advocated for them to display their work throughout Hamilton, because I was teaching in Dundas, Ontario. So around Hamilton, we had art shows, and I, showed them, look, you've got to have a business card. I mean, you have to make it a profession. And I think that was good for them to realize.
And it was so unique. I have to say that too is also incredibly unique. That doesn't happen often in art programs, especially in high school, and definitely not even really in university that much.
Well, a lot of them could have gone both ways. They could have done science, and they could have done art, and their parents were always advocating again for science. And then I would say, well, you got to prove to your parents that you can actually make something of this as a career, not only expressing yourself, but you can make some money out of this. And so sure enough, some of them went into art as a profession, which was fabulous. So by advocating for students, I started to advocate for other teachers. So I then started to teach at University of Toronto in the summer. People say you have summers off. I never had a summer off. So I taught and helped the other teachers get better degrees for them, and more about art and how you could help the students create a voice. So it wasn't just the curriculum. And I was able to write the curriculum. They're still using some of it. So it was, again, about voice and not just about the elements and principles of design. You can use those, but let's see how you can weave them into your work as well as a voice. Mm-hmm. And then I got picked up by Brock University and taught in their teacher program there. And finally, I guess, I retired from teaching. And that's when from that system. And from there, I went to Dundas Valley School of Art, and I'm teaching now in adult communities, which is great fun.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
Is that the community that So I think Gordon Leverton is also involved in that organization, isn't he? Yeah, there's quite a few artists in Hamilton area.
There are, and
Yeah.
I was always my dream when I was teaching in Dundas. I would bring the students. We walked down because it wasn't too far. We walked down to Dundas Valley, and we'd do nude drawings for their portfolio, and we would take advantage of the situation there, and that was a great gift for them as well. But from there, the Dundas Valley was always like in my back of my mind, thinking, "Hey, I think I could teach here." So sure enough, I'm teaching online there and involved in their auction and whatever else they've got going on. But I think my private classes are where what's called Brushes Up Studio. Not an advertiser. I'm just saying that. I'm advocating.
That's okay. You can advertise it. People ask me all the time if I know who does lessons.
So I'm also advocating for now the students, the adults who never had a chance to have their voice heard. So a lot of mentoring, not so much of how to do, but how to speak, how to put a collection together and all that kind of stuff. So that's it.
Oh, that's all? You don't have more? Oh, I know. I know something else you forgot.
On stage at one point.
I was going to say. That's always been my, if I didn't go into art, it was like, what's my big hairy ass goal? I'm like, I'd love to be on the stage doing musicals. That would be just awesome.
Yes. Well, my father again was a light opera singer, and he was always on stage. I mean, his whole life was a stage. It was hilarious. Anyway, so I kind of picked up that, and my sisters picked up that as well. And I ended up landing on jazz. So I was a jazz vocalist for a while, and did gigs all the time, all through the city. And I also did, I didn't do too many musicals. I kind of wanted to. If I was going to stay in that, I would have done that. I would have said, okay, now it's time to go into theater because I love it.
Yeah. It's so fun.
But it was taking so much of my time that I was still I was still exhibiting throughout Hamilton. My art at that point was more of an installation. And again, it was like The Voice, talking about women's issues and whatever global issues were happening. I was expressing those through installations and some painting. And so I was able to continue creating, but I loved that whole showtime. It was fun. It was a blast. And
yeah, I totally get you.
Yeah. Actually recorded CDs and had some fun with that. And I thought, it's taking up a bit too much time. I have to get to what I really love, and that is visual arts.
It's hard though. I feel like we're similar in the sense that if something sounds like it'd be really cool, it's like, oh my God, that sounds like fun. Absolutely, I want to do it. And sometimes you sit back and you're like, I am so busy. And people are like, well, you can get rid of stuff. I'm like, yeah, but I love it all. Like, I know I have to because I don't have time to do sometimes the art or something that's my number one passion. But my number two passion is really close,
I know. It's great. But now I'm doing visual arts and doing the whole gallery thing again, because before when I was, doing the whole installation art, I had quite a few gallery shows. And then I kind of dropped off for a while, as I said, with music. And I picked it up, but I thought, well, I don't need to express those views anymore. I want to do something else. And that's when I picked up a brush and spent 2 or 3 years just playing and saying, oh, I've been teaching the students how to do this. Now let's see if I can, remember all my notes.
That's right.
Yeah. So I did that and loved it. I'm still doing it. And had the same shows you did, and was, I got to tell you, Kate, honestly, I was literally shocked when people started to buy my work. I thought, really? I mean, I'm having so much fun. I guess my work made a connection to you. And then I realized, okay, the power of my fun, or the power of what I have to say on a canvas, really spoke to people. And I thought, well, like any other artist as well, but I thought, yeah, I could, I like this. I'm going to just do this full time now, other than teaching part-time. So yeah. That's what I've been doing. That's how come I'm seeing you at so many shows, is you got to get in. And I can't wait for Artist Project to be live.
I know, me too. But I have to say, sometimes I agree with you. Sometimes it is a surprise when you do something that you just so enjoy and you kind of feel like you do it anyway, right? And then people want to buy it and you're like, wow, that seems like just awesomeness all coming together, And I wanted to talk about a little bit about voice, because I think that that is a really important part of it. And I think that it's something that, as long as you can retain that voice and you feel that really that emotion when you produce, I do think that comes through in the work. And I was recently interviewed by somebody, and they said, she said, Kate, you're kind of backwards. I'm like, well, what do you mean? He said, well, a lot of artists feel angst, and they use their painting to kind of get rid of their angst. And the angst is the painting is actually the final result of the emotion. And I find I tend to only like to paint when I'm feeling joyful. So I get myself into the right state of mind before I paint. So it's it comes out, but it's not there where it starts. You know what I mean?
No, I do know what you mean. But for me, I'm just painting. I'm an intuitive painter. I think you can see from the back. I'm not saying to myself, well, let's make a landscape today. I never started out doing landscapes. I don't consider myself a landscape artist, but this is where I am right now. It kind of ended up that way. But it's the process for me. I'm a process painter. I just love what happens to me when I'm in there making those resolving those puzzles and making those connections within. And it reminds me of doing patterning. It's just okay, one step, two step, and it's all about connecting within. So I got to my present state of these. I call them the shift collection, because during COVID and lockdown, like many other artists, I thought, okay, now what am I going to do? Everything was closed. So I walked myself out to my studio and I said, all right, then I'm going to have to clean this area up. And I started putting all my paintings in piles of, yeah, that's a goer. What was I thinking about that one? And so I kept putting them in piles, right? I guess I was just tidying my mind. And the what was I thinking pile got to be painted over. But when I was painting over them, I didn't just gesso over them. I decided to work within them. So instead of over, I was working within them. So
they kind of just were unfinished more than not successful.
Yeah. So I just kept rotating them and rotating them. And lo and behold, that happened to be a landscape and ended up being landscape. And then these spheres these circles started to show up. And I was like, what are you doing here? And I guess that was just me trying to be whole again. I don't know. It was something about mysterious and unknown. And I really like that time period of dusk. So they all have this darkness, this mysteriousness. And do I do it on purpose? Not really, because I really let the painting speak to me, like a lot of other artists do. And it's my voice that's coming through. It sounds kind of spooky, but it's surreal. Like it's coming through the painting. So it's not obvious that I'm going to talk about this. It just comes out. And I think that's a gift that I'm enjoying right now.
I think you're right. And I think that it's not always easy to do. And I think that tends to be it feels to me like that's where people tend to have a bit more abstraction within their work, because it's not always controlled. And I don't know about you, but I definitely will feel that I get into the zone of doing a piece of art, and then it's only the next day that I can actually step back and assess what it is, like objectively, to kind of go, okay, is it finished? Is it not finished? Does it have legs? Is it a total disaster, but it was really fun to do? Like, where does that fit within the criteria? Which pile in my studio does it go to?
Exactly. I have had quite a few stinkers, but I ended up,
don't we all? But sometimes, but don't you find sometimes those stinkers, you have so little attached to them that you can just kind of go in and just kind of go, what, fuck it. Like, I'm just going to go with it. And it's already a stinker, so I'm losing nothing. But sometimes some really cool stuff comes from those stinkers.
Well, that's my whole shift came was from the stinkers, because I was trying to regain this flow. I didn't know what. I thought, okay, I've done this collection, I've done that collection. Now what am I going to do? And so by doing this, it formed itself. It told me what it wanted to do. And it was just a new perspective on looking at it. It was just some kind of weight of change. I was thinking of what was going on in the world. And although I'm very joyful when I paint, and I'm usually pretty an upbeat person, but these paintings took on this,
I can't tell.
These dark, moody, and I thought, oh, okay, I'll go with it.
Yeah.
So that's where they're at right now. But I love titling them. A lot of people have difficulty titling pieces, but you're right. I just let it flow for a few hours and let it flow, and then come back, let it flow again. And suddenly I'll just go by and say, oh, I just caught a glimpse of something. I don't know what it is. And I thought, oh, that's a shift. Everything's shifting. There's energy shifts. There's shifting, shift. And so then I started to begin this shift collection, and the titles come out from like deep under and ecology and that kind of titling. I love it.
Hmm. And so when you start to decide, it's interesting because I see you work in shift and then traces. You have a couple of different
Yeah.
collections. Do you work in those collections at the same time? Like, would you go back and do a traces one, or are you kind of like, that was cool, that's done, and now I'm moving on to the new collection?
That's right. That's done. It was cool. I'm moving on. And then some of them get painted over into the next collection. So recycling some of my old thoughts. No, I like to work in collections. And the reason is that, like many other artists, I get bored. Like personally, I get bored of doing the same, because when I know that it's a landscape, there's going to be a circle. As soon as that happens, that comes into my brain, I think, nope, it's time to change. Because I can't, for me, I'm speaking personally, I have to keep it up. I have to keep changing all the time, because I'm just learning all the time as what I would like to do and where I want to put these paintings in the long run. So it changes. You're right. The one, and that's that. Yeah. Focus.
And so does the title of shift come early on, where you're kind of going, yeah, I see that these pieces have like a shifting quality to them and they're shifting? Or is it after you've done a number of them, you're like, oh, this is a cohesive thought and concept that's kind of pulling them all together?
Well, both, I think. I think both. Sometimes it comes right away. I think shift came right away for me. Traces took a little longer. Breathing was just so much in the moment. I loved every minute of it, and the ones I was making. So there's all this global issues that I'm reflecting, but I can't really articulate what the issue is. That sounds kind of, but I'm trying to just work through the feeling of it, and then the aesthetic also comes out. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's wild. I think that's a really cool, it's a cool concept. And it's interesting to see how vibrant you are in life. And obviously not even just your hair, but even talking to you, like you've got a very high energy, and then the work is quite somber. I mean, it's not depressing, but it's just somber. Like it sort of makes you stop and think a little bit.
Well, I'm glad people are thinking about it. And because of that, we always talk about the business end of it. We're talking about how much do you sell, and people will come by and they're just, in a show, or they'll see it on my website or Instagram. They'll see it float by. Like, oh, that's the kind of reaction I get. I want it. It has to be on my red wall. I want it. That has to be with me. And that's why I'm so grateful. And I'm not making sales all the time, but it's okay with me, because I like to make the sale if they really, really are connected to it, and it's their forever home, and it meant something to them, and not necessarily what I wanted it to mean, but they saw something in it that they wanted. And I think that's, again, they're reflecting their voice onto my painting. And again, it's the way it goes around again.
I love that too. It's almost like an unintentional partnership.
Right on. Right on. Love it.
And so do you have a hard time letting those pieces go, or for you is the message done, the communication's done?
Oh, I always have a hard time. I'm always calling them my babies, and I hope this goes to a forever home and I can come and visit it. I mean, that's so silly, because I have to step back and say, it's a business, Margot. Come on. People wanted it. Make another one. No, I enjoy letting them go, because I know that they're appreciated. And that just means good, then I can make another one.
That's how I feel too. I feel like I call them my babies as well, but I think in the same way that it's your responsibility as a parent to make sure they fledge and fly and are happy in their own life. I feel a bit like the paintings are designed to do that too,
I know. And I was afraid, well, if they change their interior, then maybe this painting will go and some other painting will come back, but you never know.
I think you can't control that. Like, it's funny because I have a lot of art in my house, and I truly am one of those people that I don't have very many walls. And people are like, oh, you can store stuff and you can rotate it. I'm like, yeah, but the pieces I buy, I love and I want to live with forever, right? Yes. And, I don't know if I change my furniture in my house, I just don't feel like I would change the art, because I have such an emotional connection to it.
That's right. People should be decorating around the art.
Yes. Yeah, I should. Yeah. I just had a client recently. She repainted her whole living room to better fit the art. And I'm like, excellent. It is beautiful. Yeah.
It's lovely when that happens.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. And so the other thing I think we have in common is that we both have sisters who are also in the arts. Of course, my sister is a painter and yours is a jeweler. And so do you have one sister or more?
I have two sisters.
Two sisters. And is your other sister also creative?
Yeah, she's more of on the crafty end. She's a felter. She loves felting and mosaics. And she's a little watercolorist. She's famous for her watercolor cards. So she'll do that. And Michelin, and so that's Kathy. And then Michelin is a jeweler right now. Yeah.
Yeah. So if people want to see, I did an interview with Michelin very early
Yeah.
on. She was one of my first interviews. Yeah. Really interesting. So do you guys ever collaborate together on a pieces or on a show or?
Not yet. It's I keep bugging her and saying, "Come on, we can do this. We've got the same voice. Let's go." But I think she wants to keep it separate, which is fine. And I collaborated with my other sister once, and so that was cool. You know, I think we have our own distinct direct where we want to go. So anyway, I have an uncle as well who's a sculptor, and beautiful work. And I'm going to collaborate with him, I think, as well at some point.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's a really neat thing. I mean, collaborations I think are always hard because you have to sort of dance around. You know, you have different visions, you have different ideas. Even if you think you've communicated what the goal is at the beginning, it ends up kind of coming into it has its own mind, right? The whole show and collaborative process. But I think it's really rewarding. Yeah. I think when Helen and I did our show, I think we're very close. So I think we thought it was going to be easier than it actually was. So we actually came down to how the pieces fit together and what they mean and how we work together. And it was really, for me, it was really interesting how it kind of opened up the way that I work as well. And it was really neat to be able to work so closely with another artist. And her process is so different. It was a very interesting, I don't know, influence, I think. Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, but they really complimented. I thought it was very, very complimentary. I loved the show and the sizes and everything reflected. It really, really fit beautifully together. Yeah, I thought.
It did. It did come together really well. So I was really proud of it. So it's actually up at Noodle Gallery right now. It's another sister's show, which is kind of fun. So that's cool. And I'm super excited that you're part of our Pi Art Squared show. Have you worked on circles before? Like it sounds like circles and spheres are becoming kind of an icon in your work. Was that an easy thing or a hard thing to transfer to?
It was different for sure. I did some practice pieces, I must admit. But you can see them behind me here before I drop them off to you next week. After a while, I thought this is really cool, and they were made so beautifully. Those panels, they're gorgeous to work on.
Rustic World does an awesome job of those.
Really, and I think I might continue to do that. I know I loved your bubble wall when I saw your bubble wall at One of a Kind. I thought, oh, a lot of people are getting into these circles, and they're so glorious. That they're just gorgeous to work on. And I might try to work on some larger ones as well, some larger circles. But for me, I prefer a very large painting because I like to get the whole abstract expressionism, you know, going on, the gestural abstraction that I work through. I like it large, messy brushes. And so when I had to work this small, I thought, how am I going to translate that? It's like, it's like Tiny Town. But
I find it's hard. Like, it takes me a while too to get into the zone. Like right now I've got my tondos to do. I haven't done my brown ones either yet. I've got one. You can see here it's like partially done.
Yeah.
And I've got Julia Veenstra's square foot show pieces as well. And so I find it takes me a while mentally to get into the small zone and the small mode so that I kind of really get more sucked into the details of it without getting too tight and fussy. And I'll do those for, I find, probably like a number of days, and then I'll kind of go back to the big pieces where they're much more flowy.
Loose and flowy.
Loose.
Absolutely. That's my favorite. Yeah.
Yeah. Loose and flowy too, but it's interesting because during COVID, I think, you know, like you're right, I think a lot of people's art changed just because of circumstances. You know, for me, it was, you know, I had to get myself into that zone of feeling joyful and grateful, and which is much more difficult when you're feeling isolated and stuff. And it was interesting. As you were talking, it just occurred to me as I'm looking at this new pieces I'm doing with the gold foil, is that they are very controlled and very process driven. And I had to really figure out the process of how to make this work. And I guess that was my maybe response to lack of control everywhere in the world, trying to control something and have it very predictable.
Yeah. Yeah. I think my reflection with that was just to organize and to just have more meditative moments around the whole situation. And with that came, as I said, that shift, because it was just my whole mindset was shifting. Before, I would just go out in the studio being very joyous, and the music was blaring like everybody else did, or a podcast was
Right.
on. I picked up, oh, I'm going to do one in pink today. Oh, this is lovely. And just dance around like, you've heard a lot of other people express themselves that way. And then that to me seemed odd. It seemed like something was taken away a little bit. That kind of fun was taken away. And so that's when these other ones started to come out, and I'm connected to the darker shift.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and I did that too. I worked on a lot in the blacks and the dark blues and
Yes.
dark purples, and my intent was to try that, to exercise how I was feeling, and then it ended up being still fairly joyful, even though it's on black, because that's, I guess, I'm an optimist, so it comes through.
Well, yeah. And I think a lot of my students are saying to me, well, let's see these spheres in like lavender. Let's see a brighter color. And I thought, well, I don't know if I'm ready for that yet, but I will. Actually, I'm starting to do a series, about forest bathing and doing some trees. And I'm not, again, a landscape painter, but it seems to have found me. And so I'm starting to do these really abstract trees. So I don't know where that'll go. I'm always excited to see where it'll take me, and without planning it. And then the plan comes in once I thought, okay, this is where I'm going, Okay.
Yeah. I know, I do that too. And sometimes I find this is where it's going. And then, like you're saying, you realize, okay, this is now so different from the other work I'm doing. Like, it still has the same energy, and I think it has the same signature and the mark making, but it kind of belongs in its own category or own collection. And I find I tend.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, because I find I tend to do that as well. Unfortunately, I'm not like you where I can leave one collection behind, because sometimes I feel like I go back and I'm like, oh, I think I can now elevate that collection. I can see something different in it than I did 2 years ago when I first started working on it, or 10 years ago when I first started doing it.
Well, I tend to exhaust the collection only because, as I said earlier, once it starts to repeat itself too much for me, then I think, okay, this isn't, I can do better creatively. So I want to just make it further, push it further, or try something else. And my mark making is, you can always see that there's some kind of connection to all of them. You can see that it's by the same hand, by the same artist. So that helps. So totally different, but there's a connection, and I like that, making that connection.
I think to a certain degree that shows the confidence of the artist, that you may not know exactly what the end result is going to be, but you're confident in your mark making and your hand and how it kind of comes through the brain into the fingers, sort of thing. Yeah. And I think that's always a good thing when that kind of joins all of your pieces, and it gives you a great deal of flexibility and freedom to do different things, but there's still that inherent connectivity to you and your work.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's the favorite part, is the connectability. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
The other thing I thought was interesting as I was reading a little bit about you is that kind of play with chaos. And I kind of, I always say about my energy and motion pieces too, that they have a lot of energy to them, but there's always a fine line between energy and chaos. And for me, I don't ever want to really totally cross that line, because then it becomes, I think, dissonant and maybe unpleasant, but sometimes you just kiss right against it. It's fun to play with chaos.
It is fun to play with chaos, but I'm about the tension and release, so you get this tension of the chaos, and then, oh, there's a meditative moment somewhere in there. Isn't that nice? Oh, oops, there's another part. Oh, so I'm like,
so you like to screw with people, is that what you're saying?
Yeah. But I think it's also about, when you see my work, it's this dark, and then you see me. When I was at an artist project, they come around the corner, and they see these, somber blue pieces, and then they see me go, oh, did you do this? Yep.
Are you a booth sitter?
Yeah, I was in contrast. I said, well, there it is, the chaotic with the niceness. It's always yeah.
I agree. I have to say, I do really love that too, like the chaos of the calm, and the negative space and the positive space, and the texture and the flattening of the texture. Yeah. I think there's something really dynamic and fun, and I think for me that's one of the key things that I find I can keep exploring, is that kind of play with the opposites, maybe pushing the boundaries.
Yeah, especially in composition too. You gotta have some rest areas, and because if it's all chaotic, I'm just like, where do you stop? I can't.
I know. Then you're like, ooh. Especially because, yeah, and your work is quite dark right now. So if you have a whole bunch of that chaos and it's all dark, that can really bring people down, right? For mine, it's very colorful, but that also can kind of create like an epileptic fit, right? So you kind of have to have that balance between, yeah, between when it slows down and allows you to be thoughtful but restful.
That's right. Thoughtful but restful. Nice. That's good. Yep. I'm putting that in my
Okay, feel free to steal that. I'll never remember it anyway.
thoughtful but restful. Yeah. It's about that suspension too, right? You like to be suspended. So it's like a lot of people don't like that when they look at art. They just want a nice piece of art and they go into a room, which is great. I love it. They're just, oh, that's so calming. And then when you get this chaotic stuff, it's like, oh, I can't relax now. I'm gonna have to put that in a different room. So,
but I think that is a really, really important part of the business of being an artist.
Yeah.
Is that exactly to that point? Not everybody will want what you're producing, and not everybody will love it. Doesn't matter how many times you try and convince them of it. And there's some people that really gravitate, and there's nothing wrong with gravitating towards representational because they understand it, they understand how to read it, their mind knows how to absorb it, versus some of the more abstract or expressionist stuff is it's a bit more work sometimes.
Yes, it is. It's a work of convincing people that this is the narrative you really want.
Yeah. But I think that's where having that emotional connection, you don't necessarily have to articulate this is what you want. People kind of emotionally feel that's what they want in their place, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I always find it interesting whenever I do, marketing stuff where it's like, who's your audience? Oh, everybody's my audience. I'm like, it's not. It's totally not. I know there are a whole bunch of people that hate my work. Totally cool. There are also a bunch of people that love it. That's cool too.
Yeah, that's true. That's right. So what it comes down to is it's a business, but who do you please? You please your audience or do you please yourself? You have to somehow please everyone. And if you've got a list of clients that, I have some clients in the neighborhood, for instance, who just phoned me up and said, I've got some old bubble wrap. Would you like some old bubble wrap? I said, sure, come on over. And while they're there, they bought like 3 drawings.
Ooh, awesome.
Did drawings. I said, yeah, I do drawings. So they just went through them, and so you never know if the client is into you, they're a collector, and that's always so satisfying that they believe in you. And I think that's talking about going back to the circle is this believing in someone's voice and advocating for that. And that's I'll probably do that forever. And I'm hoping people will believe in all my darkness.
Well, but I think it's also it's seeing the light through the darkness, right? Like I agree. I think it's like we were talking about before, is that the mark making, recognizing the artist, recognizing the voice, believing in that voice, and having some sort of a connection to it, which again is why I find personally it's so very critical to do these in-person shows so you can actually personally connect with those people. Like I think for me, I agree. I think that's all part of the aura around the work. It's not just the work itself. It's also the artist and the vision and the voice and all that kind of stuff that makes it all, people want to have it.
Yeah, you're buying the package, and which is fabulous. You're buying the package. You're investing in you're investing in somebody's voice, and you're investing in their aesthetic at the time. And when you change collections, they'll follow you.
Yeah. And I think, again, looking at the business part of being an artist too, it's just like, it was always smart to help people transition from one collection to another, help them follow you, help them read your path, help them see that really what you're doing looks really different, but there's the same sort of aesthetic and energy about it that it was before that they liked originally. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, it's all about the writing.
Yeah, I'm not so good at that part. I can talk about it. I just can't write it.
Oh, I love the writing. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I know. My sister's an excellent writer too. And I'm like, I wish I could that free flow and the words come out really well. And, I find I talk it and then people are saying, well, what exactly did you say? I'm like, I don't know. Once it's out of my mouth, it's gone. Unfortunately, I can't seem to pull it back and actually put it on paper and commit it. But, everyone has their strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah. I know. It's fabulous.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
so what else did you
to being into the pie show? I think that's such a great idea you have. That's so fabulous.
I am so excited too. Like, what I love about it too is it was kind of one of these things that was been rolling around in my head for a while too. It's just like there's so many square foot shows and so many people do them. Like Julie Veenstra does it so well. You know, I don't want to go up against her, but also I just don't feel there's another place that there's not necessary, right? And I've always loved circles, and I kind of thought, you know, that would be something that would be really interesting to try. And the first year, I was really just more by invitation because it's kind of like, I don't know, might work, might not work. You know, we don't know, so I have to have people with me that'll just kind of go with the faith. And this year we had so many artists apply, and we actually had to jury them, which was kind of really cool. And
Right. Yeah.
I know. So it's kind of, I think we have what, 75 artists, and we could have, I don't know, 250 paintings. We don't quite know yet, because I think one of the challenges with the circles is
Right.
you can commit to doing this many, but some of them don't work because you're not really used to doing tondos.
Right. Well, that's why I only decided to do 2 because I thought, let's just try out the circle thing. And sure
Yeah.
enough, now I wish I had 6.
Well, I had a number of artists who ordered 5, and then they said, "Oh, I'm only going to submit 2," and then they're like, "Yeah, but you know what? 4 turned out really well." So, yeah, I think it'll be really great, and I'm really excited to be able to. I mean, obviously, doing it online is awesome because then more people can see them and access them. But the other cool thing I think too is having it in person and being able to see all those circles on the wall at Art Alchemy. It was pretty awesome last year, and I'm looking forward to it again this year. And having a real opening with real people.
I know. We'll see how many roll their way home with them.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah. And it's interesting because I've had a couple people reach out and kind of go, well, I don't really know how to hang a circular. Where do you put it? And I'm like, well, you can pretty much put it anywhere. But yeah, so I've started actually collecting examples of where people have put circular arts because it's, yeah. So hopefully we'll just make a whole movement of it and everybody will need bubble walls of their own. That's my goal.
Well, I know they're like collecting. Well, to start trading them.
Yeah, exactly, like pins.
Yeah, trading Tondo.
Yeah.
There you go. That's your thing.
Ooh, that would be cool. Yeah, it's like a swap, community swap. Trade one Tondo for another.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Well, and I think the other cool thing will be, because I just ordered a whole bunch of Tondos as well, so to kind of continue to do the whole bubble wall concept where the 12s are kind of a good anchor, and you need a couple of really big ones too to sort of,
Yes,
ground
and I'm going to
the
steal
wall.
your idea, and I think I might put that in the artist project, put a little area.
So we'll have 2 bubble walls then. I'm still planning I'm still planning planning my booth, so we'll see. It depends on what I can actually get done, but as always, that's a challenge. Yeah. So what's up next for you?
What's up next for me? Just a couple of shows coming up and reassessing this